psychological disorders. I'm your guest lecturer, Donna Shu, and today I'm going to talk about psychological disorders and classifications. I wanted to start off with this little cartoon. It says, "I'm always like this, and my family was wondering if you could prescribe a mild depressant." Now, maybe you think of treatment as just medication, but really we'll be looking at different kinds of treatment in a later chapter. But in this chapter, we're going to look at different types of mental disorders. And I'm going to start off talking about the classification of mental disorders. According to psychologists and psychiatrists, a psychological disorder is marked by a significant disturbance in a person's thinking, emotions, or behavior. Now, you might think, okay, what does that mean? This means that the person can't perform their normal everyday tasks. If you're a parent, for example, you might have difficulty or taking interest in your child's sports activities. You might not have the ability to go to work. You want to, but you just cannot do it. You also may have a very severe reaction, so people would take note of that, and the reaction may be very prolonged. And we're seeing it in different areas, in your thinking, in your emotions, and your behaviors. I'd like to introduce the idea of the biopsychosocial approach. I like this diagram because it helps you look at different ways to think about the possible reasons why someone might have a mental health concern. Certainly our biology has an influence. Maybe you have a genetic predisposition. Maybe there's different chemistry going on in your brain that's causing you to think or feel differently. On the other hand, there are psychological influences. Maybe it's a time in your life when you're under undue stress. For example, you've lost your job, you're going through divorce, or maybe there's trauma in your family. Perhaps even the way you think about your moods is causing you to feel worse as well. And then think about all the cultural influences in your life, the roles, the expectations that you have from your culture. In fact, your culture even defines what's normal and what's not normal. Different cultures have different expectations. One important thing I'd like you to look at is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. You may not be aware that in mental health treatment we have a standard, a manual that helps us define different kinds of psychiatric concerns. It's called the DSM-5 for short. And it describes the disorders and it estimates their occurrence and gives you more information. And it's a diagnostic, helpful manual that all providers can have a common frame of reference. Recently, there's been some changes in the DSM-5. There's been some new diagnoses that have been added. Some are even controversial, and some have been changed. The terminology has been changed, and there's even been some new things added, such as hoarding and binge eating disorder, and perhaps you're familiar with some of those, but now they have a special classification within the DSM-5. Finally, I'd like to have you take a close look at this chart. You'll see risk factors that make you more vulnerable to mental health concerns. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to have one, but it could say if you add a number of these things together, certainly you might have more of a probability. And then look on the other side for protective factors. You're going to see things that in your life, if you do these things, it can lessen the chances that, or help you ameliorate if you do have some mental health concerns, help make things better. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of risk factors, for example. Let's say that you are a person who's experienced abuse in your family history, and so a child that has experienced abuse may have higher risk for depression, anxiety, self-esteem concerns, and so forth, versus a child who has never experienced that. Another risk factor might be, hey, things might run in your family. You might have a parent history of mental illness. Maybe it goes back to your grandparents and so forth, so you have a genetic loading. Another one I want to bring up is substance abuse. Anytime you have a chemical dependency, that certainly could increase your risk for other mental health concerns. On the other hand, a couple of protective factors I'm just going to pull out for you is aerobic exercise. That is a win-win situation. You are having endorphins released in the body. It's giving you positive benefits health-wise, and so all of those things, a healthy body can help with a healthy mind. Another important protective factor is positive parenting, good attachments at an early age, early bonding with parents, having a social network. And the final one I'll just point out is proactive problem-solving skills. So instead of thinking life happens to you, it's like, how do you affect your life? And feeling that you are empowered to make change. Well, with that, I would like to invite you to read this chapter carefully. It's fascinating, and I hope that you enjoy it.